Hi there, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and the project I am sharing today is a fall card that I made using my Brusho watercolor powders to create this sort of fall leaf colored background. So to start off, I have a piece of 140-pound Arches hot pressed watercolor paper, and I am spraying that with my distress sprayer to get it a little bit wet. And now my Brushos that I'm using are, this is orange, and Brushos, if you are not familiar with them, are a pigment powder. They're a watercolor powder. So instead of mixing them ahead of time, you can just sprinkle them on and activate them with water, and they create lots of fun abstract sorts of effects, as you will see here. Now right there, I pulled the push pin out that I use in the tops of my powder containers, and a whole bunch of red just came out when I pulled the push pin out, so I didn't want to add any more, because another thing about this powders is that less is more. So you definitely want to start out with less. You can always add more, but if you get too much in the beginning, you can be overwhelmed by, like, say one color or another that may be more than what you want. Like you will see now when I start spraying with water, the color starts to activate. And that red is a really, really strong color. And so had I sprinkled more on, the red could pretty easily take over all the rest of the colors. And so that's something to keep in mind with these products. The powders tend to do that. Certain colors are stronger than others, and you'll just learn that with experience and time. And so I've just sprinkled a little bit more on, and I'm adding a little more water. And too much water is definitely an issue as well. And here I'm adding just a tiny bit of green, and green is another one that will go crazy if you add too much. So I'm adding just a tiny bit of green, and you'll see once it's dried how far this will flow out, just those little bits of green. So just be careful with, if you add too much water, you can create like a big puddle, and the colors will all flow together and just sort of become a big brown mess. So just beware of that with the crystals. But that's my background that has dried now, and these are some leaf shapes that I cut out using my Silhouette Cameo. This was a design that I downloaded from the design store and cut it out using the Silhouette adhesive backed cardstock in white. And I'm just going to create this sort of leafy background by collaging the various shapes together on top of that Brusho background. Now the adhesive on this cardstock actually worked pretty well with the watercolor paper. There were some areas where it did not want to stick. The Brusho powders, when you add water, they sometimes don't completely dissolve, so you have little areas where there are actual like crystal bits still stuck to the paper, and those were areas that the cardstock did not want to stick to. So I did grab my Zig glue pen and add a little bit of extra adhesive to some of those areas, which you won't see me do, but I did do here and there. And you can see like there, it doesn't really want to stick too well. But I'm going to trim off the extra, and then I'm going to use the extra bits of some of these ones that are hanging over to fill in that bottom section, as you'll see me do here with this bigger leaf that fits better. So a little bit of a puzzle piece to get them all to sort of fit well together, but it turned out okay in the end, I thought. Now for my greeting, I am using a very simple hello from the Spring Hello set by Hero Arts. I didn't want to do anything too much to compete with the busy background, so I thought just a simple hello was a good greeting for this card. And I decided to heat emboss this in gold, so I am stamping it with Versamark ink. I did use my anti-static tool first to keep embossing powder from sticking to places where there was not ink. And now I'm just going to cover that with gold embossing powder, and then I will heat set it with my heat gun. And I have mentioned on many other videos that if you are new to heat embossing, metallics are great to start with because you can really tell when they are done. So you can see right there, it goes from sort of matte to shiny, and that's how you know it is set. Once it turns shiny, you are good to go, and you just move the heat gun away and it's done. Now to finish off this card, I am tying some gold ribbon around the bottom of the leaf panel. Again, I didn't want to compete too much with that busy background, but I thought a little bit of gold to go along with the gold grading would be a nice touch. So I'm just tying that into a simple knot. And then I will be adhering down the grading that I have trimmed down and backed with some burgundy cardstock to set that off on the front, kind of separate it out from the panel. I do wind up bumping up that entire leaf panel with some fun foam. You'll see me do that in a minute. For large panels like this, I tend to use sheets of fun foam rather than foam tape, just because it's, well, one thing, it's easier because you get like sort of the dimension very easily with very little effort, and it's also less expensive. So to just adhere fun foam on there, it's less expensive, and then it also keeps it nice and supported all the way across the underside of that large panel. And I'm just using the ATG gun to adhere it to the leaf panel, and then also to adhere the fun foam to the cardstock backing that you see there, that is an A2 sized piece of burgundy cardstock, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. The leaf panel did get trimmed down to 4 by 5 1/4. Now, of course, I can't make a card without adding a few sequins, at least not normally, so I had to pull out my sequins for this. I used some orange, some red, and some gold. And I'm using a new adhesive for this today. I am using some micro dots. I did see Tara from Crafting with Curly Cues use this on one of her videos, and that inspired me to get these and try them out, and they worked pretty well. I did have a little bit of a hard time getting them to stick to the red sequins. I don't know why, the red ones, but once I got them stuck on there, they really held those sequins down very well, and they do a nice job and a lot less messy than glue. And there you can kind of see that brusho-y background and how pretty those colors are once they get wet and they kind of blend and flow together. After they're dried, it looks really pretty. It's kind of abstract, but lovely. So if you have not used Brusho powders, I say get some. They're really fun to play with. I hope I've inspired you a little bit today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, there is a complete supply list linked below in the video description and over on my blog. If you like this video, I'd be thrilled if you give me a thumbs up, or even better yet, please subscribe. Thank you so much and have a great day.